Greetings. I thought I'd tell another story today. This story is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be taking place almost 50 years ago. Years ago when I lived in Washington State, growing up as a teenager and later, early 20s, I spent a lot of time down around Mount St. Helens for about 1965 through early 70s. Spent a lot of time steelhead fishing down there. It's a very unique place. Well, the Toutle River we used to fish that came off Mount St. Helens was very unusual. It didn't matter what time of year, any month of the year, I could go down there and catch a fresh steelhead, either up in the tributaries or sometimes in the main river. The main river is open the year round. But St. Helens was a very mysterious, wonderful place. And that's where this story is going to take place. Why am I hitting rocks together like that? Well, you're soon going to find out. The whole area down there was kind of like a little paradise. We'd go camping and I'd take a bucket with me and we'd pick blackberries when I was fishing and camping in the campgrounds. And we could go down there and take our stove and our camping stuff and cooler and everything, put it on a picnic table in the campgrounds, drive off and go fishing for half a day and come back, and this stuff would still be there. I mean, it was really neat. It was a neat place. And the whole river was covered with these giant Douglas fir trees. I saw logging trucks leaving the area where the trees were so large that one log filled the whole truck. It was just a beautiful, magical place. And like I said, we spent a lot of time fishing down there, a lot of time. And occasionally we'd make a trip up to Spirit Lake. Now, Spirit Lake's kind of an unusual place. It's a very clear water. If you take a marker about that big, a red marker, and you drop it in the water was so clear that they said you could drop that thing down lower than, I think it was 150 feet and still see it. Very, very clear water. And then, of course, we had Boy Scout, Girl Scout camps up there, a campground, Forest Service. And from there, the road went from Spirit Lake up to what they call Timberline, which is where pretty much the trees end, and there's Mount St. Helens, which was mostly pumice covered. Anyway, when we were along the river and hiking and doing things down that way, I noticed that there were cut banks where the river and creeks had cut through banks of, well, it was pumice. It would be 20, 30 feet high banks of pumice. And there'd be layers of pumice all up and down the river, different places. And in between the layers of pumice, there was forest material and trees had been. And then there'd be another layer of pumice. And when you walked along, it was kind of, I think, the eastern shore of Spirit Lake, and it dropped off quite deep. Or if you're in a boat along the edge, it was a very deep lake at the time. You could look down and you could see dead trees still standing. I'm talking about trees over 100 feet tall, kind of silver colored. Look down the water, you'd be looking at the top of the trees. You know, they'd be. So you knew that in the past there had been some very catastrophic things going on in that valley. Not just one time, before, but multiple times, because you could see it in the layers of the pumice. It was just a deer and elk, and I spent quite a bit of time down there. Where the Toutle River came out of Spirit Lake is where Harry Truman, those of you who are familiar with the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980, there were a lot of stories about Harry Truman, who had a lodge right there. And behind the Harry Truman Lodge, where the river came out, Spirit Lake, had all these big logs down there. And as a kid, would go down there once in a while, walk out on the logs, and you could drop a little single leg and stuff. You could catch trout right there at the Toutle River came out of the lake. And right there behind Harry Truman's lodge, I used to fish there. Now, he was quite a character. I understand he had 16 cats. And like I said, I spent quite a bit of time down there. And 70, 71, 72, I would actually drive up Timberline to Mount St. Helens there at the end of the road. It's just the road made a circle, went on out. And I'd hike up in there, and I'd even climb up the mountain sometimes, up towards what they call the Dog's Head, between this Forsyth and the, I think it was the Wishbone Glacier, I'm not sure. But anyway, there was some, I know there was on the other side there was the Ape Glacier, and there was the Forsyth Glacier. Well, but anyway, there was a little ridge that ran up towards above the Dog's Head up in there. It's all pumice and stuff. So I'm very, very familiar with the area. And I used to go up the other way, up Windy Pass, which is, went over Windy Pass, and there was a big gash in the earth. And that was the split open there. And that's down to Ape Canyon. Now, Ape Canyon got famous because there were some prospectors that were down there about a mile or two who claimed that they had been attacked by Bigfoot, Sasquatch. And then out past it was an area, it was kind of a pretty flat, but it was where all the streams and stuff came off Mount St. Helens, and a lot of debris and stuff, and glacier debris out there and stuff. But they called it the Plains of Abraham. Why they called it that, I don't know. And then out towards the end of it, there was a place called Pumice Butte. Those of you who know anything about volcanoes, sometimes, especially in Central Oregon and other places, they have what are called buttes. And what they are small volcanic cones that they erupted at one time and then went dormant, I guess. But anyway, there's a famous one there, good-sized one. Pumice Butte. It's before they come to the Plains of Abraham, or you drop down from Windy Pass. And I used to go over there, and because there was some mountain goats that would live on that side of Mount St. Helens, and that little ridge ran over to Pumice Butte. So I took my little Argus camera at the time. It was from the 1960s. And, you know, you had autofocus, and light meter was all manual. You know, sometimes your pictures were too bright, some of them too dark. It's just the way it was, you know, Kodachrome 2 or whatever it was. And I take pictures of mountain goats. I actually had a mountain goat picture, which I'll hear in this video here, that I had published, one of them. And so I knew the area quite well. And I met a guy about 73, maybe 74, can't remember. But anyway, he belonged with the group, the very early group of people who, well, they studied Bigfoot or Sasquatch. They collected stories, they interviewed people, and you know, there were some of the very earliest pioneers with books and articles, and really taking a look at the Sasquatch and Bigfoot phenomenon, or whatever you call it there in Washington, Oregon. Anyway, the one friend of mine knew I had spent a lot of time in that Windy Pass, Mount St. Helens area. And he says, look, we got a person we want to interview. He claims he saw a Bigfoot down around Mount St. Helens. I says, okay. And so we met this individual, I believe it was in a hotel room. And he came in and he just gave us his first name. Started telling a story that he had driven down to Mount St. Helens to hike around Windy Pass. And he said that he had gotten up just into the head of the pass, and he right there on the trail with Bigfoot, he said. And so my job was to ask him a lot of questions about Windy Pass and that area to find out whether he had really been there or not. You know, a lot of people make up stories and stuff. So anyway, I was after a number of questions and talked about the rocks and the pumice and the different kinds of things up there, the plants and the type of trees that were there, you know, noble fir and a scrawny pine that grew up in there, and the height of it, how high was this creature that he saw. I figured about 8 feet tall. And so I was pretty convinced, and I told the guys, you know, hey, this guy was really there. Now whether he saw Bigfoot there, I don't know. You know, it's hard saying. But anyway, the guy finally told us who he was and what he did. And he was the backcountry ranger for Mount Rainier National Park. Now I asked him, you know, wow, did you see any Bigfoot or anything in Mount Rainier National Park while you were on your job? You know, what he did, he traveled the trails in the summer, and he was the backcountry ranger. He said, no. He said the only one he saw was in Windy Pass, right there by Mount St. Helens. He says, just as we're coming to the top of the pass, if he's hiking up there. Then he says, I'm going to leave now, and as soon as I walk out that door, I'm going to deny I was ever here. I will deny I ever said a word about what I saw at Windy Pass. He says, you guys have the information, but I'm going to deny it if you... He says, heck, you could put me in front of the judge. He says, I'm going to deny I saw it. So he says, you've got it. This is what I saw. Moving on. Now, why am I hitting those rocks together like that? Well, let me tell you why. It was about the same time, maybe 73, 74. I had been down fishing on the river. It was September, probably late September. We had all the fall colors coming out. And I got done fishing early, so I decided, what the heck, it was a nice, beautiful end of September day. I mean, gorgeous. So I drove on up Spirit Lake, then on up to Timberline. And look, you know, there was nobody around. I mean, it was after Labor Day, and the campgrounds were empty, and even the Forest Service office at Spirit Lake was closed. You know, I was into the season. You know, it could snow any day. So anyway, but it was a nice day. It was in the 70s. I mean, I had wearing nothing but my cut-off blue jeans for shorts and a t-shirt, and I had a pair of handmade hiking boots I'd gotten from REI. That was back when REI was a co-op, and you used to go there, and it was nothing but a warehouse, and you'd pull the stuff out of bins. And it was the handmade boots, because they're all different. Every handmade boot is different. You grab about 10 pairs of boots, you try them all on and figure out which one fit your feet the best. Well, I had a pair of handmade Italian hiking boots that last a long time. Anyway, after I parked at Timberline, I got my gear together and started up the trail. The main trail to Windy Pass took off to the left, went over Pumice Butte, over to the Plains of Abraham, and I decided to go to the right, and that put me on a pumice ridge that slowly worked its way up. See, Mount St. Helens at the time was about 997 feet. But I would go up to around the top of the Dog's Head, and that would be probably 7,000 feet. And it was between two glaciers, the Forsyth Glacier on one side and then the other glacier on the other side there. And so I walked up this ridge, just continued to climb up. Beautiful sunny day, probably 5, 6 in the afternoon. Nobody around. It was just gorgeous. Yeah, I just keep working my way up, and I got up. Well, I didn't go clear to the top of the Dog's Head this time, but I was up there in the pretty close. I must have been about 6,000 feet up, maybe. But you know, Mount St. Helens has all these little gullies. So I could look down. I could see my car and timberline. There's no other vehicles around, no people around. I can see all over the mountain, except if you look lateral, you can see some things, the high points, but there'd be these little gullies where the snow had melted and had washed out the rocks and so forth, just like you would see anywhere else, geology-wise. It's just, you know, when water comes off a mountain, it forms gullies. And so I got up there and kind of enjoyed the day, took a couple of pictures, and then that's when I heard the rock clicking. What the heck was that? I couldn't figure it out. And so I sat there for a while, and again I heard that rock clicking. But I didn't see anybody. I didn't see anything around me. I had no idea what was around me. Like I said, you could see a long ways. But it was very strange. So I started back down the mountain, and I kept hearing the rock clicking. Sometimes it would click. Well, I think a couple of times it clicked twice, but mostly 3 times, and sometimes 4. Now this is very strange because most of the rock on Mount St. Helens is pumice. You know, this stuff you throw in the water, it's light, it sinks. I mean, it floats. And that black volcanic rock up there, if you bang it together, it doesn't make a really loud noise. So I was baffled, you know, who'd be out here clicking rocks? So like I said, I started walking again down the hill, and I got more than a couple hundred feet. And this continued for quite a while. I go down a little bit, stop and listen. I hear this clicking, rocks banging together. Sometimes it was 3 times, or sometimes it was 4 times. And I couldn't figure it out. And I walked over to some of the little gullies a little bit, tried to look, but then I noticed the sound was a little farther away yet. But you know, when you're up there by yourself and there's nothing up there and there's no wind, sound travels a long ways. But I don't know what it was. I couldn't figure it out. So anyway, I continued on down, and pretty soon, you know, got behind me. And whatever it was, it sounded like it was coming down behind me. And you know, look, there's nobody there. Nothing's there. So eventually I got down to the car, and I didn't hear it anymore. So I was wondering, what the heck was that? So I have no idea what it was. All I know is it didn't belong there. It wasn't a sound I'd heard there before, or even like it in the woods. So that's my story about the Mount St. Helens, Toutle River, and the rock clicking. So I hope you enjoyed it. I've made it easier for those who want to listen to my other stories to go to my YouTube channel, and I've decided to put these stories on a playlist. And I'll have many more stories coming. And yes, I'm going to have more Bigfoot stories coming too. So stay tuned. Till then,